Today we're going to talk about warrants, and not the ones that get you in jail, but the ones that may get you some extra paper. And what else gets me paper is definitely not YouTube yet, but you can definitely help me make that into reality if you can subscribe and like this video to help me get discovered by more individuals. In the meantime, while you do that, here's a cute picture I found this week. So starting off, what's a warrant? Warrants are essentially what gives you a right to purchase an amount of common stock by exercising your warrant at a certain striker price after a merger goes through. Now I know I just said a lot of things that may sound confusing, but as we unravel, we can learn more about what it is. Another important term to know when dealing with warrants is SPAC, which stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Companies. Usually they contain a share and a full or partial warrants. Partial warrants, as the name describes, are pretty much when you combine your partial warrants, they can make a full warrant. Usually there's a conversion rate that is tied in with the warrants, but majority of them are a 1-to-1 conversion rate. Let's run through an example. It'd probably be easier if I explain it this way. When it comes to understanding purchasing a stock, it's good to know the three ways that you can purchase it. So you have warrants, options, and common stock. We won't get into the details of options specifically because that in itself is a lengthy video, but for now we'll just talk about common stock and warrants. Everybody here in this situation starts off with $500, and in order to purchase the common stock that is currently going for $20 for $500 gets you about 25 shares. Now with the warrant, what you can do is essentially you can guarantee yourself a price that is of the cost of the options, which is a cheaper price, going for $11.50. Now what you're saying is that I will pay a $2 premium on that $11.50 to guarantee a lower price if in the situation that the common stock ends up increasing after the merger goes through. So for $2 you're paying premium with $500, you end up getting 250 warrants. What that means is that if you decide to exercise those warrants, you can pay $11.50 each per warrant to convert those over to a common stock, in which then you can sell. So let's say the merger goes through. So after the SPAC merger happens, the prices increase for the common stock. So we end up seeing that the common stock is now valued at $30.
Wait a minute!
It's important to note here that just because a merger goes through, that doesn't always guarantee that the cost of the common stock will increase. The price could go either way. But for this specific example, we're just going to assume that the price of the stock did increase. Okay, let's get back into it. Whereas the options are now costing $21.50. However, since you've bought your warrants ahead of time, you can actually get the cost at the cost prior to the merger, which is $11.50. So if you want to exercise those warrants, you'll have to pay $11.50 each per warrant that you own if you choose to exercise those warrants. So if you were to exercise all of your warrants, it would cost you an additional $2,875 per warrant. So all in, you would spend about $3,375 with the initial $500 that you put in. However, if you sold all 250 shares at $30 each, which is the current common stock price, you end up yielding about $4,125.
Show me the money.
By doing this, you're able to mitigate the risk. Whereas the individual with the common stock who bought only 25 shares, if they were to sell immediately, they make $750 with their initial investment $500, they make $250. So that's kind of a high level understanding of how warrants operate when it comes to an SPAC merger. So that should give you an idea on the differences between a warrant, options, and common stock, and the risk that comes going those different routes, as well as how much you can make going those different paths as well. Now, generally, mergers fail about 20% of the time, though it depends where you read and find that information, but that seems to be the number that I'm able to find online. Now, seeing that it generally happens somewhat rarely, it is good to know that it is in the best interest of the SPAC to make sure the deal goes through, because if they don't, then everybody loses money, themselves included. Now, obviously, when it comes to the situation, let's say if a merger doesn't go through, then everyone's going to rush to sell whatever options or warrants that they have, which will cause a drastic drive down of the pricing. So in some situations, you may lose all of your initial investment.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
But that just comes with the risk that you take. Now, when it comes to executing your warrants and the time that you have to do it is generally about 30 days after a merger goes through. So regardless of what the price is of the common stock, you can't exercise your warrants until that time of period has passed. Now, in some situations, the SPACs do allow you to do an early execution, but that just goes by a case-to-case basis. Additionally, you can also wait to execute your warrants, sometimes all the way up to 5 years before your warrants expire. Or in some situations, it can go all the way up to 7 or 12 years, depending upon what SPAC that you ended up purchasing. There's also situations where a company can force you to sell your warrants or execute your warrants. Because if there's warrants left outside that aren't being taken care of, usually a company will advocate for you to sell it by either saying if you don't sell it by this date, then they're irrelevant. Now, why should you leave Robinhood? Well, outside of the other reasons that happened earlier this year, the biggest thing is that you can't purchase warrants on Robinhood. You can purchase them on Fidelity, which is what I personally use, so that's what I would advise. And the way you kind of find warrants is pretty simple. Generally, most places it just has a W after it, so whatever your stock may be. So, for example, let's look into this one. This one is ArcLight Clean Transition. They are a EV bus company, and if you add a W to it, boom, you got the warrant version of ArcLight Clean Transition. So that's pretty much how simple it can be. But again, you can't do that on Robinhood, but you can do that on Fidelity and most of the major brokerages that are out there. In short, warrants are high risk and high reward. Now, if you're able to find a good opportunity and you did your due diligence, then you may be onto something that's worthwhile for your portfolio. Now, as always, if you made it to the end of this video, please like and subscribe to this video. It does really help me out. And if you have any suggestions for any future videos for me to make, please put them down in the comments below. And if I end up choosing it, I will definitely give you a shout out. Till next time, thank you for watching. Peace.